Background: my nephews are 8 to 10 years old. When they were 4, their parents went through a very messy divorce, and as a result, I took them in for 3 years. I'm not going to go into detail, but my brother became a drunk, and the mom didn't want anything to do with them, so that's why I took them in. I met my husband through the school they go to because his daughter is in the same class. During the 3rd year, my brother got married to his wife, who has a daughter with terrible manners. She is 9 years old, so she is old enough, but she is a kid who will throw a tantrum at events when it's not about her. For example, she blew out the candles on my nephew's birthday, and when he cried, he got reprimanded. I took them out the next day so he could blow out his candles. Keep in mind, my brother still isn't making an effort with his own kids. Towards the end of the year, he demanded to have his kids back, and because of how the court arranged it, he was able to keep custody. I, however, still attended everything because the boys want me to. I never bonded with his wife or daughter because my sister-in-law is rude and very passive-aggressive. I have made efforts by inviting them to my house to bond, but she ripped up my husband's daughter's favorite doll, and then my sister-in-law got mad at me for reprimanding her. In my wedding, my daughter is going to be the only one in the wedding party as a flower girl, and my nephews are the ring bearers. We have a no kids rule, so that means no stepniece, as I know that she will throw a tantrum at my ceremony. The main issue is that she wants to be part of my wedding as a flower girl. My answer is no, because I want my daughter to feel special, and to be honest, she isn't important enough to me to want her in my wedding. Her mother is demanding that her daughter be a flower girl, or my nephews won't be taking part. That I'm hurting a child's feelings by excluding her. It's not that I want to exclude her. It's just that I know she is going to throw a temper tantrum the moment she knows she's not the center of attention, because no matter what, she does that. I told my brother that if this happens, I will cut off all financial support I have given them, which he said was not fair. Keep in mind, I would be paying for a babysitter at the hotel, and I have chosen a venue that's close to a theme park. So while the ceremony goes on, she will be there, and then my daughter and nephews will join them for the rest of the time, and then go back to the hotel to go to bed and everything while the reception goes through. Because this is a destination wedding, I will be paying for my parents' and brother's room and a babysitter, which I think is generous and way more fun than being in a wedding, which can be stressful. My brother is telling me to sort it out with my sister-in-law, and my parents understand me, but told me to let it go. My daughter wants to be the only flower girl, but wants my nephews, and they cried when they thought they couldn't be a part of the wedding. Also, I'm not going to cut off financial support because that will just affect my nephews more than anyone. By the way, the financial support I give is paying for school bills such as extracurriculars, tutoring, clothes, shoes, and school supplies for my nephews. My brother has always wanted to be a dad to girls, so I think he just pays for general stuff, but leaves my nephews to fend for themselves. Also, I do have a trust fund for them to open at 18, so don't worry about that. Am I the jerk? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot. Your brother needs some spray starch for his spine, and you have made it clear that your sister-in-law isn't going to strong-arm her child's way into your wedding party. He can either stand up for his children or be a doormat. It's his choice. Her mother is demanding that her daughter be a flower girl, or my nephews won't be taking part. I'm hurting a child's feelings by excluding her. It's not that I want to exclude her. It's just that I know she is going to throw a temper tantrum the moment she knows she's not the center of attention, because no matter what, she does that. Boo, flipping, who? The flower girl position has been filled. Little Miss No Manners didn't make the cut. I told my brother that if this happens, I will cut off all financial support I have given them, which he said was not fair, or too bad, so sad. I guess it stinks for him that life is not fair. Comment 2. Not the idiot. The flower girl position is taken. Not only taken by a random family member's kid, but by the daughter of the bride. Sister-in-law can go pound sand. Her kid is her problem. Her tantrum is hers to deal with. That kid is not invited to the wedding. The ring bearers are your foster kids, for that matter, not step-niece brothers. If your foster kids don't participate and you are bullied and denied them on your big day, you are not obligated to open your purse to him. It might not be fair, but life isn't fair. The kids didn't deserve a drunk father, an absentee mother, and an evil stepmom. But that's what they got. He can't have it all. Your wedding, your rules. At sister-in-law's wedding, her kid can be the flower girl. Now, for the update. Hey Reddit, it's been a month since I last posted about the drama surrounding my wedding and my stepniece wanting to be a flower girl. Buckle up, because things have taken some busy turns. First off, let me fill you in on some history that I didn't mention before. My brother's wife, let's call her Karen, has always been competitive with me. Ever since she married my brother, it's like she's been trying to one-up me in every aspect of life. This wedding situation is just the latest battlefield. So the update, after my last post, I tried to have a heart-to-heart with Karen. I thought maybe if I explained how important it was for my daughter to have this special role, she'd understand. Boy, was I wrong. She accused me of favoritism and said I was trying to replace her daughter with my own. It got heated, and she stormed out, leaving me feeling like the worst person in the world. The next day, my brother called me, and we had a long talk. He confessed that he felt caught in the middle and didn't know how to please both his wife and me. I felt for him, I really did, but I stood my ground, my wedding, my rules. Now here's where it gets juicy. A week later, my nephews came over for a visit, and they were both looking really down. Turns out, Karen had been taking out her frustrations on them, blaming them for not being able to convince me to let her daughter be a flower girl. They were heartbroken, and it ended the life of me to see them like that. I decided enough was enough. I called my brother and told him that if he didn't sort things out, I'd be forced to take action. I didn't want to play this card, but I reminded him of the financial support I've been providing and how it could go away if he didn't step up. The confrontation must have sparked something, because the next thing I knew, Karen was at my door, in tears, apologizing for everything. She said she didn't realize how her actions were affecting everyone, especially the kids. It was a jaw-dropping moment, and I was skeptical, but I accepted her apology for the sake of family peace. But wait, there's more. Just when I thought we were on the path to reconciliation, I found out that Karen had been bad-mouthing me to the rest of the family, telling them I was the one being unreasonable and cruel. I was flawed. Here I was, trying to be the bigger person, and she was stabbing me in the back. The final straw came when I caught her daughter, the infamous stepniece, trying to sabotage my daughter's flower girl dress. She had scissors in hand, ready to cut a huge chunk out of the fabric. I managed to stop her just in time, but the damage was done. The trust was broken. I had to make the toughest decision of my life. I told my brother that his daughter was no longer welcome at the wedding. Period. It was a heartbreaking conversation, and I could hear the disappointment in his voice. He knew it was his wife's doing, but he was powerless to change her behavior. The wedding is now a week away, and the tension is palpable. My daughter is still the only flower girl, and my nephews are still the ring bearers, but the family rift is wider than ever. I've arranged for the babysitter and everything for the stepniece, but I'm not sure if they'll even show up at this point. Sister mocks my parenting, but her kid's meltdown has her begging for help. She's about to learn actions echo louder than words. My sister and I had our sons around the same time. My nephew turns 7 in October, and my son turns 7 next month. I was 20 years old when I had my son, and this was a big deal with my sister. She's 10 years older than I am and really had no expectations when it came to me as a mom. She predicted I would end up single, and my son's dad would bail, and that I would give up within the first year. Instead, we are married, and we had 2 little girls after our son. We are very different parents. My sister is very strict and regimented as a mom, and has a lot of rules and swift, harsh punishments for bad behavior or any subpar behavior. My husband and I would probably fall more into a gentle parenting kind of deal. We teach our kids how to act in public, but we do so in a very different way than my sister and her husband. My nephew can be very challenging, and he's an angry little boy. I suspect it's because his parents are often angry, and he is picking up on that and building resentment, which has made his behavior worse. Our parents have brought this up to my sister in the past, and she has told them it's not true, and claimed my son behaves far worse, despite them saying it's not even close to the truth. Our parents had both boys on Saturday, and my sister and I arrived at the same time to pick them up. Our parents' elderly neighbor approached my sister and told her that she should have a word with her son because of how rude and disrespectful he is to others. My sister told the neighbor that she had the wrong sister, and my son was the kid who gets into trouble. The neighbor said she knows the boys apart and knows who the mom to each is. She told my sister that my son was very sweet and showed no disrespect the way her son did. My sister was furious. The neighbor told her that thanking someone, my son, for picking something up for her does not warrant being yelled at and cursed at by a small child. Apparently, my nephew got an attitude and told her nobody has to help her because she's old and can't do anything for herself. My sister went off on the neighbor and said her son is so much better behaved and accused her of spreading lies. The neighbor walked away mid-tirade, and then my sister started to turn on me. And instead of letting her, I said she needs to stop being so bitter and examine her parenting instead of going off on people who complain about her son's behavior. I told her I would not let her take it out on me, that she was wrong about me as a mom, and that I feel like a lot of her anger comes down to that she hates that I don't get the same comments. She tried to yell at me, but I just got my son off of our parents and left. My parents asked me what happened, and I told them. They said I did nothing wrong, but my sister and her husband are both now coming for me for what I said, and they told me it wasn't my place to say all that disrespectful stuff. Am I the idiot? Aita, my parents are supportive, and it was my sister and her husband who told me it wasn't my place. I realize now I did not make that super clear in the end. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the jerk. You're right. She needs to examine her own parenting instead of blaming and pointing the fingers at you. It's hilarious to me that she was like, "Oh, you have the wrong parent," and the neighbor set her straight. Too bad for her. Don't engage in their continued finger pointing. And maybe your parents should be sitting her down and having a discussion. Also, what your nephew said is extremely rude, and I would be mortified to find out my child talked to someone like that. Comment 2. Not the jerk. But you might want to consider distancing yourself. Your nephew's parents are deflecting, looking to place blame on anyone else, and they want an apology from you so they can feel vindicated. Your parents need to decide if they want to continue watching your nephew if he behaves so badly. As I always tell my kids, if you behave badly and hurt people with words or a temper, then you won't have any friends. Your nephew is going that way, as are his parents. Now for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for all the support on my last post. It's been a wild couple of weeks since then, and I've got quite the update for you all. After the confrontation with my sister and the neighbor, things got pretty tense. My sister and her husband were furious with me for standing up to her, and they made sure to let me know it. They bombarded me with texts and calls, saying I was out of line and that I should apologize. But I stood my ground. I knew I hadn't done anything wrong by defending myself and my son. Meanwhile, my parents were caught in the middle. They've always tried to stay neutral, but this time they couldn't just sit back. They told me they were proud of how I handled the situation and that they agreed my sister's parenting style might be contributing to my nephew's behavior. They've always been more supportive of my gentle parenting approach, even though they never said it outright to avoid playing favorites. The next weekend, my sister and I were both at our parents' house for a family dinner. It was awkward, to say the least. My sister barely spoke to me, and her husband kept giving me these glares like he wanted to say something but was holding back. My nephew, on the other hand, was acting out more than usual. He was yelling, refusing to eat, and at one point, he even threw his plate on the floor. That's when my son did something that surprised us all. He went over to my nephew, put his hand on his shoulder, and said, "It's okay to be upset, but it's not okay to make Grandma and Grandpa sad." My nephew looked at him, and for the first time that evening, he was quiet. He didn't apologize, but he did start picking up the pieces of his broken plate. My sister saw this, and I could tell it hit her hard. She excused herself and went outside. I found her on the porch, tears streaming down her face. It was the first time I'd seen her vulnerable like that. She admitted that she was struggling with her son's behavior and didn't know what to do anymore. She confessed that she was envious of the relationship I had with my kids and how they respected me without fear. We talked for hours, and I shared with her some of the things my husband and I do with our kids. How we focus on understanding their feelings and teaching them to express themselves in a healthy way. It was a heart-to-heart that was long overdue. The next day, my sister called me and asked if I could help her implement some of the gentle parenting techniques I use. I was more than happy to help. We started having play dates where our kids could interact, and we could model positive behavior together. Slowly, we saw changes in my nephew. He started to calm down and express himself without lashing out. My sister and her husband began to ease up on the strict rules and harsh punishments. They started to see that there was a different way to handle things, and it was working. My nephew was becoming happier, and their home was becoming more peaceful. Just last weekend, we had another family dinner, and the difference was night and day. My nephew was polite, he listened, and he even helped clear the table without being asked. My sister thanked me in front of everyone, saying that she was wrong about my parenting and that she was grateful for my help. As for the neighbor, she noticed the change too. She came over to thank my nephew for helping her with her groceries, and he accepted her thanks with a shy smile. It was a complete turnaround from the boy who had yelled at her just weeks before. Dad's quick remarrying after Mom's death made me snap. He sent invites on her anniversary, but the wedding will reveal his true colors. 2 years ago, my mom died from cancer. She was very young, in her late 50s. My parents were married and happy, so it was incredibly hard for all of us. In less than a year, he met a new woman and then months later announced that they're engaged. It's a short engagement, about 8 to 9 months from getting engaged till the actual wedding. I do understand that a lot of people, seemingly more widowed men from stories I've heard from others, find someone very quickly and often get remarried within a year. So I'm trying not to be naive here. For my siblings and me, it has been a little strange because we are still processing the death of our mother. Additionally, the new fiancé is only a few years older than my sister and me, who are the eldest. We've tried our best to make an effort to be happy for him and be welcoming to her, all while processing our grief. My issue is that he's so wrapped up with his new fiancé that he's forgotten we are still grieving. To the point that on the 2-year anniversary of our mom's death, 3 of us got our wedding invite in the mail, while the others got it the day after. It hurt all of us that they didn't think about this date in the days, week leading up to it, but I decided to leave it as I didn't want to taint their joy. He sent a message to my grandma, my mom's mom. Out of the blue, after no contact since the funeral, I was with my grandma at the time, asking for their address so he could send them an invite the day after the anniversary. Hence, we were with my grandparents to support each other. He didn't ask how they were doing at this time, or how they were coping with the loss of their daughter, or whether they'd be okay with an invite. He just stated that they were being invited, and he needed their address. My dear grandma said she'd like to attend for our sake, though my granddad refused point blank and was too upset to talk further. A month later, my sisters and I were added to the Hindu WhatsApp group with all the new fiancé's friends, who were all chatting excitedly and planning the hen party. For us, that was another pang of heartache, as we are only in this position because our mom, pretty recently, died. Here's where I'm wondering, am I the idiot? Am I the A? I sent my dad a message to say I'm happy for him, but feel they haven't thought about our grief, and would have liked to be asked first before being added to a hen group. But most importantly, I wanted them to remember certain dates, like the anniversary, and not send wedding invites in the days week before this time. He replied saying, "Sorry, I'm not being thoughtful enough. I'll make sure to check with you beforehand." Note: it might have been insensitive, to send his kids wedding invites just before the anniversary. I said I don't want him to run everything by me. Just remember we're grieving. Then he blamed the post and said that it wasn't their fault it arrived on the day. Now I think he's avoiding me. So, am I the idiot for putting a damper on their wedding by highlighting our grief? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot. Your dad is so focused on his own feelings, he has forgotten, or didn't ever realize in the first place, that his children are grieving. In addition, his upcoming wedding is likely a way for him to avoid his grief and pain. How well it will work, only time will tell. Your dad did a terrible thing and got called out on it. Instead of admitting to it, he has turned defensive and tried to make it your fault, and the post's fault, which doesn't hold up given the call to your grandma the next day. Whether you decide to let him off the hook or not is your call. Talking to the fiancé about it might be an option. I'm sorry for your loss. My mom died at 62, and her partner, of 3 years, so different from a spouse of decades, started dating within months of her death. Fortunately, I have no reason to remain in contact with him, so I am not confronted with his actions every day. Comment 2. Not the idiot. Sorry, but your dad is a huge butt for this, in my opinion. It's cool if he finds someone else, and pretty fast after your mom's death. Good for him, really, but it's not hard to understand and respect the fact that the rest of the family might still be very affected and still be processing the death of a loved one. Especially his own children, who lost their mother, and his parents, who lost their daughter. I mean, no, shoot, your granddad refused the invite and got upset for it. I would have smacked the shoot out of your dad if I was him. That's beyond disrespectful. Now for the update. Hey everyone, a lot has happened since my last post, and I've got to fill you in on the latest drama. So, after my dad's pretty insensitive timing with the wedding invites, things have been tense. My siblings and I have been trying to navigate our feelings, but it's been tough. We've been doing our best to support each other, remembering how close we all were when Mom was still with us. She was the glue that held our family together, and without her, it's like we're all a bit lost. Now, let's talk about the Hindu group chat. My sisters and I were already feeling out of place, but things escalated quickly. One of the fiancé's friends, who we'll call Sarah, started asking for contributions for a lavish weekend getaway. The price was steep, and it was clear that they were planning something extravagant. It was a shock to us because we were used to more low-key family gatherings, and Mom had always been about meaningful experiences over flashy ones. The unresolved conflict really blew up when my sister, who's been struggling financially since she's still a student, mentioned in the group chat that she couldn't afford the trip. Sarah didn't take it well and replied with some pretty harsh words about commitment and being supportive. It was a jaw-dropping moment for us because we couldn't believe someone would be so insensitive, especially knowing our situation. But wait, it gets worse. My dad caught wind of the situation, and instead of backing us up, he offered to pay for my sister's share. This might sound like a nice gesture, but it felt like a slap in the face. It was as if he was trying to buy his way out of the problem without addressing the emotional side of things. We couldn't help but remember how Mom would have handled it. She was always there to listen and help us work through our problems, not just throw money at them. Now, let's talk about my grandparents. After my dad reached out to them for their address, things have been awkward. My grandma, bless her heart, has been trying to keep the peace, but my granddad is still furious. He's been reminiscing about the old days when he and my dad used to go fishing together and how they haven't done that since Mom passed. It's like my dad has become a stranger to him, and it's heartbreaking to see. The confrontation finally happened last week. My dad stopped by my place to drop off some of Mom's things he found while moving stuff for the wedding. It was a box of old photo albums and some of her jewelry. Going through it was tough, and I couldn't hold back my feelings anymore. I told him how we all felt like he was erasing Mom's memory with how quickly he moved on, and how it seemed like he was more interested in his new life than honoring the one he had with her. He didn't take it well. He got defensive and said that he had every right to find happiness again. I get that, I really do. but it's like he doesn't see how his actions are affecting us. The conversation ended with him storming out, and now there's this heavy silence between us. It's like we're all walking on eggshells, not sure how to move forward. The wedding is getting closer, and the tension is building. My siblings and I are dreading the thought of sitting there, watching our dad marry someone who could practically be our peer. It's not that we don't want him to be happy, but the whole situation feels like we're being forced to accept this new reality without having had the chance to properly heal. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.